Welcome back to the channel. This is your boy Ahmed at Altcoin Era, and this is the weekly roundup. We're going to go through the markets. We're going to see what happened. Was I right again? Who knows? Let's see. Make sure to like, subscribe, and join our private members. Let's begin. Social media is done with being a tariff expert. They've now moved on to the Middle East. I think people on social media should have a license. You know, the filth I see on social media is ridiculous. Donald Trump has now made a truce with China, and it's now 55% tariff. The world has moved on to the Middle East because there's war in the Middle East again. The real expert is this gentleman here. He predicted the conflict before it even happened. 1 week before Israel attacked Iran. Check this out.
Carol, I want to talk about Israel. And I think this is a very interesting time right now for this. Obviously, we've seen, for example, the progression of this Israel's war in Gaza. I mean, the continuing devastation, still a massive humanitarian crisis. But also, I think we're also starting to see a lot of the international support for Israel is starting to wane, and it's really becoming a turning point here. I want to get your thoughts on Israel as we're looking in June 2025 right now. What is your thoughts on the current situation between Israel and Gaza and the pending crisis with Iran?
Well, I think we're going to end up in a struggle with Iran. It'll be a conflict. How does it begin? I rather suspect that the Israelis will begin it in some way. They'll act initially on their own. Then we'll be dragged in to support them in a system. How does Israel come through this? It's hard to tell. The Iranians have the capability to flatten the place. Israel's simply not that large.
Right.
And they could do that. Now the Israelis could be extraordinarily arrogant and impudent. I would say a better word would be arrogant and foolish, and actually use a nuclear warhead of their own in their desire to destroy this so-called nuclear facility. I think that would be a terrible mistake. And then you would have a situation in which the Russians and the Chinese probably would both pitch in. What does that mean? I don't know. But I think Israel's in a lot of trouble now. It's losing a lot of population. It has very little income. It's entirely dependent upon us. I don't know that it survives the whole enterprise. We also have no strategic interest that would lead us to destroy Iran.
Right.
Now they talk about Iran as though the revolution happened yesterday. It's been 46 years.
Right.
Iran is a very different nation from what it was 46 years ago. Iran is a highly developed society with a very, very high human capital. They're much more capable than people think. We have this sort of ridiculous idea of Iran as this backwater of another Muslim country where nobody can do anything right. That just isn't the case. And we ought to be interested in cultivating good relations with them, not going to war with them. But Israel wants to maintain its monopoly on nuclear weapons. And it's determined to destroy anyone in the region who might, for any reason, have a nuclear capability. The Turks know this. And the Turks have always said to us privately that if they need a nuclear weapon, Pakistan will give it to them. So they're not really worried about it.
Right.
What a terrible set of circumstances to be in if you're Israel. I mean, literally, you've told everybody in the region that they're subhuman and that they richly deserve to be destroyed. I don't see how the Israelis recover from that. You tell all of your neighbors they deserve to die and they're subhuman. You're not exactly cultivating friends and supporters. So I think whatever happens now is probably not going to be good for Israel, period. It's going to set us back. It's going to harm us. You start interrupting the oil flows and so forth, you're going to have a hell of a time. Who's behind everything in the Middle East? It's not Iran, contrary to popular belief. We've tried to argue for years that if you just destroy Iran, everything will be great. No, this is ridiculous nonsense. So I think we've reached an impasse. The problem is this, and this is most important, Cyrus. If you're President Trump, you sit down with your political advisors, whomever he's talking to these days, probably Lutnick and Witkoff, who are both fervent Zionists. And he says, well, how many senators do I control in a crucial vote in the Senate? And how many senators does Mr. Netanyahu control in a crucial vote in the Senate? Answer, Mr. Netanyahu controls more of the Senate than Donald Trump.
Wow.
That's probably also true for the House. That's why Washington is this fantasy island. Everybody who lives there is stuffing their pockets full of cash that they get from various lobbies and kickbacks because of their support for military equipment going all over the world or the commitment of U.S. forces somewhere. Donald Trump doesn't seem to have any control over any of it. What can he do? I don't know if you saw him I think it was yesterday, where he was asked directly about Iran.
Right.
And I've seen him in person up close. And this was a very different Donald Trump. He sat there very sort of stone-faced. Well, what about Iran and the negotiations? What's happening? And he sits there and he says, well, they want to enrich uranium and they can't do that. We can't have that. And they have to give up some other things, meaning theater ballistic missiles and so forth, and they won't do that. So I think I've said it, and it's clear the consequences are very dire. And then he sort of sat there.
Right.
This is not a man who wants to go to war.
Right.
Of course not. He's never wanted to go to war against anybody. But what's he going to do now? He's essentially boxed himself in thanks to his wonderful advisors and his readiness to essentially unconditionally support anything Israel and its agents in this country want. He's stuck. So what's the answer? The answer is we're going to have a war with Iran.
Would you say that the potential of this Israel-Iran, is this the most pressing international conflict at the moment right now? Has that overtaken Russia-Ukraine? Is this really our biggest worry at the moment?
It's overtaken everything.
Now remember, narrative always follows price. Price never follows narrative. I've been saying this for the longest, that Bitcoin is heading lower. Everyone on this channel should not be surprised. Please do not act surprised that, oh my God, how can this happen? Oh, there's a war. Bitcoin's going lower. Check this. While everyone was tweeting and celebrating, I tweeted right over here, the last day of the pump, that we're heading to 88K. I keep getting the same questions and the same DMs again and again and again. Shall I buy Bitcoin at these prices? It's very simple. If you look at the charts right now, we're forming something that is called a bull trap. We swept the highs, and unfortunately we couldn't hold above the previous all-time highs. I was very vocal and very bullish right here. I said that we swept the lows and we didn't even close underneath this area, which means we're heading up higher. And if you really zoom out, these two patterns are identical. If we go back in history to this cycle in last summer, we continued to make bull traps after bull traps after bull traps. It wasn't until 170 days later that we broke out. That's 5 months and some change. And again, during 2023 bull cycle, Bitcoin formed a clear bull trap. Even Ray Charles can see this. After this bull trap, where everyone was calling for higher prices, we went down 21%. If you go back to 2024, after this bull trap, Bitcoin went down a further 24%, and another bull trap, and it went down a further 24%. If we go back to this cycle right now, we're going to see a 24% retracement. From the very peak to the trough, we'll see prices of 88,000 US dollars. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is called a bull trap. I simply asked ChatGPT, in the long term, after a war or some war tensions, what happens to the S&P 500? The S&P 500 in World War II dropped 30% and then 210%. The post-war expansion, it rised 495%. World War begins, the market dips. Bull run, the Cold War rallied for 105%. Again and again and again. We normally have a dip depending on the circumstances. 9/11 had a massive dip, but it just depends on the circumstances. The Gulf War had a dip and then rallied 355%. Years later, the market dipped in 9/11, and the Ukraine war dipped 24% and then fully recovered in 2023 and 2025. The S&P minis is currently at 597. Today's SPY price reflects market resilience even with the recent geopolitical tension. History suggests that long-term investors are likely to benefit from staying invested. In the prediction markets, they're predicting and anticipating that crude oil could get to $94. Inflation could likely rebound sharply as a result. Now, during this whole geopolitical crisis, all this war happening, you have to look at one thing and one thing only: Money speaks. If you want to really drown out everything, you have to use one chart and one chart only. And this is oil. If oil heads to $100 and stays at $100, then it's confirmed we're in a full-blown war. No one on this channel should be surprised, because I did say the S&P 500 is going to form a double bottom. It's heading downwards. You shouldn't be this surprised. Bitcoin, you should definitely not be surprised about, because I've been saying for the longest, ladies and gentlemen, that we're heading lower. I tweeted on the last day of the pump, the very last day of the pump, right over here, that we're heading lower. We formed the exact same pattern that we did over here. If you're new to this channel, I was uber bullish right over here, ladies and gentlemen. I was uber bullish. I was streaming every single day for that week. Probably from Monday, I'm going to do a stream. And during that stream, we're going to talk about everything. And maybe in between the stream, we're going to do some chess. We're going to play some chess as well with the public. Just have a little bit of fun during that time. I'm going to live stream tomorrow. Okay. And I think Bitcoin is heading downwards. I currently have a short position and it's heading downwards. I'm going to show you the short position in another episode. I'm just going to let this cook. I want this to cook right now. Yeah. As for M2 supply, it's horrible. I see this everywhere. People need licenses to be on social media. Honestly, everyone's running around with this paper, this M2 paper. Everyone. It's just horrible. What they do is they basically move it around. Okay, 60 days, 70 days, 80 days, and keep moving it around until it fits their bias, and it's horrible. A lot of people are using this, like really using this as confirmation that Bitcoin is heading up higher and higher. I have always been a contrarian my entire life, and I don't trust this. Okay, and coin dominance, no surprise here. I see many participants desperate, very desperate, and they're right now looking at 15-minute charts just to help them out, just to give them some boost, like, oh yeah, we're up guys, we're down guys, we're up guys. But if you really zoom out, guys, look at the weekly. Let me get rid of all of this. Check the weekly out. And I said this before in my other weekly roundup. Okay, dominance is heading up higher, and we're actually doing the same thing that we did in summer during this period. Okay, from April all the way to around June, July, and then from July it's go time for Bitcoin dominance. All right, so we're just doing the same thing. So from here in April all the way to around June, July, Bitcoin dominance is going to just go on a massive tear. All right, I placed the fractal from the last summer, and we're going to break out in July. So Bitcoin dominance is going to break out during that period. Continuing unemployment claims keep moving higher and higher, and this is causing a softening in the labor market. The Fed have to pivot. I don't know when they're going to pivot, but I think Powell is not going to pivot. He's going to keep holding until something breaks. And that's why Scott Bassett is going to be the next contender for his position. This is some bullish news for Bitcoin. There is currently 116 public companies on Bitcoin. A year ago, companies held roughly around 312 Bitcoin, 1,000 Bitcoin, and now they hold a whopping 800,000 BTC. The latest news for this past week, Cardano founder Charles Hoskinson proposed converting $100 million of ADA reserves into Bitcoin and native stable coins, USDM and USDA. US stablecoins could exceed a whopping $2 trillion by the end of 2028. Another publicly traded company has announced a whopping buy of $800 million. And finally, we have some of the top 100 or top 200 coins. In the past year, there's only been 4 coins that have outperformed Bitcoin: Fartcoin, Deep, Hype, and Syrup. Let's move on to the charts. I know everyone was extremely bullish, was calling for 145k, 200k, 250k, and I told everyone we're heading lower, and that's the case. I told everyone here we're heading higher. Everyone just is completely doing the opposite of what they're meant to do. When price hits support, you're meant to be uber bullish. When price hits resistance, you're meant to be uber bearish. What don't you understand, guys? We're heading to 100k, and then we're heading to 92k. There's a CME gap at 92k, but we're not staying there, guys. We're heading to my ultimate target of 88k. Don't shoot the messenger. All right, don't hate the player, hate the game. I don't make the rules. I do not make the rules. I'm just extremely good at this. I don't think it's happening tomorrow, the next day, the day after that, but eventually we'll hit my target, and from there we'll speak again. This is Bitcoin dominance divided by total 3. This is very important, guys. Honestly, this is very important. We're heading downwards. All right, we might do a fake out and head to this EMA. All right, but most likely we're probably going to capitulate and head lower and lower. I think most participants are just more than had enough. I think more and more participants are starting to capitulate into Bitcoin or into Ethereum or into stablecoins. This is happening right now, like it or not. This is happening. We formed a new low. We had a see small little bounce. We could see another bounce during this week, a small little relief rally, but not for long. So what happens is with Bitcoin, the longer it stays at these prices, the more it grabs liquidity. It's desperate. It's just desperate to grab liquidity. So it grabs liquidity. It grabs grabs liquidity from all of these altcoins everywhere. And then finally, Bitcoin can't stay at these elevated prices. It just can't. And then it just folds. This is another very important chart. This is Bitcoin dominance, Ethereum dominance, USDT dominance, and USDC dominance. We're heading up higher. Basically, it just means people are capitulating into either three asset classes: Bitcoin, ETH, and stablecoins. And as we speak, they're doing it right now. They're all saying hodl, 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 but this chart says otherwise. Next area is right over here at 82%. We're going to close candles. This is just a wick. We're going to form candles and then close above this area, and then ultimately head to this area at 89. That's going to be the final capitulation, and then we're going to see altcoin season, hopefully. This is ETH divided by total 3, the entire market. So as you can see here, this is the RSI. Now the RSI is the lowest it's ever been. Altcoins are going to outperform Ethereum slightly for some time, because look at the RSI, guys. That means altcoins have been severely oversold. So there's going to be a mean reversion trade where they head up higher and then ultimately face resistance at the SMAs. Honorable mention is gold. Gold is going to be the best performing asset of this year. We're going to head to this resistance, and then once we break resistance over here as well at 3496, it's going to be another upward trajectory. At the moment, gold is in a super cycle and it's going to outperform even Bitcoin this year. And finally, Hyperliquid is today's honorable mention. I think Hyperliquid is heading up higher, and we're just forming a bull flag right now. I think ultimately we're going to head to $80 to $90 in the near future, but as of now, it's on a bull. As of now, it's in a bull run. We're forming higher highs and higher lows, higher highs and higher lows, higher highs and higher lows, and we're almost about to close above this wick. Once it closes above this wick, it's further price discovery. I forgot to turn my camera on. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There's so much value and so much alpha on there. I'm going to be streaming tomorrow. Catch me on there. I'm going to be speaking about all your favorite coins, the stock market, everything. And we're going to play some chess together. We're going to have some fun. I'm going to be streaming, who knows, maybe 2, 3, 4 hours, depending on how crazy things get. See you on the next one. Love you. Peace.